This is Akashvani. Time for a weekly program, Our Guest. I hand over the mic to the show host, Nitish Arora, for the same.
N number of poets, writers have written so much about sky. But sky is our protector also. Saves us from so many things. Do we actually know about it? It's good that we are reading poetry. It's good that we are reading prose about sky. But the scientists are looking into something else, something deeper, which is very meaningful for our existence. Today is World Ozone Day. Who better than Dr. Nakul Parashar, who has been a science communicator for last 3 decades and has worked so much in the field of science and still giving it a lot to the society when he is strategic advisor to a lot of international and national scientific bodies. Dr. Nakul, welcome to our guest.
Thank you so much. A pleasure being here.
World Ozone Day. For a layman, as I started, sky is sky. But then there is lots of layers in the sky, and having a particular day for ozone. Can you elaborate on what exactly is this?
Oh, sure. So we all know that, our sky, that what we call is atmosphere, and atmosphere has many layers. So the lowest layer that we live in is called troposphere, and the layer above it is called stratosphere. And we also know that sun provides us a lot of light, lot of energy. But do we ever know that sun also produces a lot of ozone? And ozone, or like, in our hearts we have a good cholesterol and a bad cholesterol. Similarly, we have a good ozone and a bad ozone. So the bad ozone is actually in the layer that we live, which is called the troposphere.
Okay.
But the layer above us is called stratosphere, into which the ozone that comes from the sun, right, is protected, is absorbed, is scattered in that layer so that it doesn't come down, because ozone, when it comes down, creates a lot of problem. And we all have heard about a lot of things about ozone layer and holes in it and skin cancer, and people say don't go naked on Sydney beach or any Australian beach. Why? Because they say there is a big ozone hole in that particular part of the earth. So in order to save yourself from ozone direct radiation, which stops from the ultraviolet radiation from the sun, it is important that ozone plays an important role in absorbing that ultraviolet radiation and scatters it. But if this ultraviolet radiation that comes down and gets on your skin, it can create skin cancer. It can create a lot of problems. But as I was saying, that there is a good ozone and a bad ozone. So the bad ozone is the one which creates a lot of chemicals within this layer, which lets ultraviolet radiation affect us, and these are called ozone. These are called ODS. These are substances that create a lot of such elements and chemicals that react. For example, chlorofluorocarbons in our ACs, halogens, right? So these are the ones that create a lot of problem and have a lot of ozone built into our troposphere.
You said that there are good ozone and there is a bad ozone.
Right.
I think very few listeners would have known about this.
Yeah.
But what was the need to have a ozone day? Is ozone harming us, or we are harming the ozone?
Let me tell you very frankly that let me take you back into history for a moment. In 1974, we all know there is a big, very famous science magazine called Nature. And in Nature in 1974, there was the first time that a study was made. And that study was verified by the National Academy of Science in US in 1976, confirming that depletion of the ozone layer in stratosphere creates a problem where it lets the ultraviolet rays of sun get onto earth. In order to understand, in order to take it forward, when the scientists found that a depletion in an ozone layer in stratosphere can create hazels, there was a huge hue and cry all over the world. The countries and governments all over the place got so much into panic that they came together. And that is where on 16th of September 1987 in Montreal in Canada, the Montreal Treaty was announced. And that is where people started understanding about ozone layer, started understanding about ozone destructive substances which are called ODS, and all of this started happening. As a result, a lot of countries came together and they started ratifying that treaty. And you just said 16th of September, and today 16th of September, we are all celebrating Ozone Layer Day, and this is because of that particular day when the treaty was signed. So in 1994, United Nations decided to dedicate this day as a Ozone Layer Day.
So 1974 is the year when we got some awareness about it, which was published.
Yeah.
Awareness might have come quite early.
Yeah.
From then to 2024, how much have we progressed in working for saving this ozone layer from further depletion, and how much damage we have done to that layer in, say, almost 5 decades now?
A wonderful question. And I think this is the most relevant point at the moment to understand the kind of damage that we have created so far and what are we doing in order to, stop this happening. First of all, let me take you a little forward and then I'll come back. Damage, of course, the magnitude of damage is immense, and that is a lot has been done, lot has been said, lot has been talked about. But now efforts are being made in order to ensure that we get to a level where we were before, when there was absolutely nothing about it. So they normally have set a standard of mid-80s. That was something which was an acceptable level. So we are expecting that in the middle of this century, we should be able to get to a point where we would be in a stage where we were in the mid-80s in the previous century.
That looks like a very good news.
Yeah.
Is it possible? I mean, we have only 26 years to go for that.
Absolutely right. And I appreciate your quick mathematics in this regard. And I would say...
First time I've got appreciation for mathematics skills.
but I would say, Nitish, that this has been, a lot of efforts have been made. In our country particularly, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has a particular ozone cell which works relentlessly in this direction. And there's a lot that has been done. There are a lot of non-government organizations that have been working in this direction. But the Government of India's initiative, right, we all can go and have a look at this particular website, which is called www.ozoncell.nic.in, and it talks about lot of efforts that have been made, and there are different phase-wise works that have been done in this direction. How to reduce CFCs, how to reduce HCFCs, and so on and so forth. And there are non-government organizations like, for example, the Earth 5R and Chintan and others. So people can also go and work with them. And there are a lot of seminars and conferences, I'm sure, that are being organized. And particularly today, I'm sure all over the country, we might have many people talking. There are a lot of meets happening, and there are a lot of competitions at schools that are happening to create an awareness.
But is there any good awareness at the individual level, and what can be done at the individual level? Yes, the agencies are working, NGOs are working, the government organizations are working, but what is the role of an individual? We are 140 billion people, which is like huge, and they can contribute. If one person contributes even 1%, then I think 26 years is in fact lot of time.
Right. So first of all, in order to understand how we can contribute, it's important to understand what are the sources that create these ODS, which is called the ozone depletion substances, like for example the chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, the HFCs. So they come basically from refrigerants, they come from fridges, they come from air conditioners. And what we can do is we could start working towards building the nature in such a way that we can start reducing our dependence on all these equipments that we use. And for that matter, it will be important for us to embrace our age-old natural way of living. Our lifestyles would need to change. Our lifestyles would need to shun all these certain chemicals that directly or indirectly are being used in a huge manner.
But every year there is a rise in temperature, and more people are going for ACs and all those non-natural things. We are depending so much of these machineries. And there are people, I find a lot of examples, people say that I want to go slow on my carbon footprint. Is that also something to do with ozone?
I think you've hit the nail right on the head. And for that matter, along with the Montreal Treaty, there was something called the Kyoto Treaty that also works in the same direction. And we all understand temperatures are rising and all this is happening. So I think we'll have to go back to the roots where we've been talking in a big way. And I think the most critical, the most natural way to do so is to get back to where we can plant trees. We can start avoiding using as much as possible fossil fuels. We'll have to understand how we can, as you rightly said, to reduce the carbon print. We'll have to ensure that there's a lesser number of dependency on equipments and chemicals that play an important role in disturbing and destroying our environment, for that matter. And for that matter, content is huge, humongous, and it is available all over the place. It's all about understanding, using, and implementing it. We've been talking a lot, Nitish, but I think it's time for us to get into action and put into implementation.
How serious is it a matter for urban development bodies? Because bigger cities are bringing in more chaos as far as atmosphere and issues related to atmosphere or ozone is concerned, because in the rural backdrop, I think these are not bigger issues. Do urban planners also need to think a lot on this? And are we going in that direction?
No, I think again a very good question, because it's not about only the urban but also the rural as well. It's all about all over the place. Now we have air conditioners very well working in villages as well, and we see a lot of prosperity in that terms happening all over the place. It's time for us to understand and take a cue from the lockdown that we had in COVID-19. You recall that was the time when you and I were locked at home and we could hear the chirping of sparrows that had come back. We had a lot of fresh air that was there. I think it's time for us to practice restraint from a lot of things. And in order to do so, as you rightly said, urban planners will have to work on ways to reduce as much as possible the emission of fossil fuels, and also planning our lifestyle and working systems in such a way that we can depend on as much as possible a natural way of living. And India, for that matter, for ages together has been talking about the most natural way of doing it. I mean, I find it very ridiculous as compared to West, where every morning at about 6:30, 7 o'clock is a rush hour. Over here in our place, we start at about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, right? At that point in time, not only the temperatures during summers have gone high, and then there's a need for more higher cooling systems, like more ACs running in cars and all. If we start things a little early in the day and we close down a little early, we not only improve the efficiency of our lifestyles, and we not only improve the dependency on fossil fuels, but also we improve the entire system and structure in such a way. It's not about emulating or copying or aping the West, but it is about adopting the best practices that can certainly bring a lot of change, right? And we come from a lifestyle where we're supposed to get up in Brahma Muhurt, right? And early to bed, early to rise. Something that we've been preaching about. So it's time, I think, lifestyle needs to change, and you and I will find that if not in our generation, but the coming generation will certainly benefit from it.
3 decades as a science communicator. Give 3 mantras to the people to save ozone layer for a common person.
Right. So the first thing is change your lifestyle, go back to your basic roots, and the best thing is avoid as much as possible dependence on fossil fuels.
I think that sums it very well, and it's now the onus is yes on the government, yes on the civic bodies, but is as much on you as an individual. We cannot shun our responsibility. The reason that we have such days, ozone layer day or any such day, is to understand the severity of the issue and be a contributor. Dr. Nakul Parashar, it was amazing to host you, and I feel like talking more and more, but unfortunately that is the time which is allowed to us. But definitely I promise to my listeners that we'll have you again and talk more about your career and your achievements in the field of science.
Thank you so much. Thank you. A pleasure being here with you.
Thank you.
You were listening to the weekly program Our Guest, that is broadcast every Monday at 9:15 a.m. Don't forget to tune in next week, same day, same time and same frequency for more on Our Guest. Have a nice day.